Good morning, everybody. I'm Christina Sorrento. I'm the Chief for the Intake and Regulatory Coordination Division, and this is the DRC meeting for Seneca Place. Your lead reviewer is Ryan Sigworth. This meeting is being recorded and live streamed. The purpose of this meeting is for the applicant to ask any questions you might have based upon the comments you received last week. I'm going to turn it over to Ryan briefly for him to actually pull up the plan, Ryan, if you can, and also just highlight any of the major issues we have, and then I turn it over to you, Kevin, and you could ask any questions you have. So go right ahead, Ryan.
Thanks, Christina. So Kevin, I talked to you a little bit on Thursday or Friday. And just give me 1 second and I'll pull up the plan. Things are moving a little slow here. When we discussed, I think the main thing is figuring out what zone you want to go under, because the zone it looks like you're using doesn't actually apply to this property.
No, I apologize for that error on the plan, but I think we are going to go in under the RMX1, okay. The previous zone. I don't think there's any reason at this point for a maintenance building to take away, to use up those rights in case they want to do something under the RMX1 zone in the future.
Okay.
And I don't see anything in the zoning standards that has any effect on anything being done.
Yeah, the only thing, and I'm bringing up the plan right now, just took me a minute. The only thing I would, that Mark Beal mentioned to me was that you should use the commercial setback standards because it'll be a commercial building permit.
Yeah,
so,
but this thing sits in the middle of the site. There's really no setback issues with it. So,
but just from a data table standpoint, they might see a different setback and then it'll get weird.
Not a problem.
Yes, this is Matt Mikowski with zoning with DPS. Just please make sure all your dimensions are labeled to the adjacent property lines, just so for ease of review. That's all. Thank you.
Not a problem. Thanks.
And then there were some comments in there about trying to lower or get rid of the retaining wall system. I'm not sure how possible that is.
Well, but Brian, we can discuss that really quick. The retaining wall, I think, is max height is 5.5 feet, and it sits behind the maintenance building. It's kind of actually hidden by the maintenance building. And if we were to take that away and try to grade up the hill, we're probably going to wipe out those pine trees in the back because that slope, continues all the way up. And we really wanted to keep those pine trees on the back of that unit. So the upper units, the units to the right, they're elevated. They look over that. They don't even see the retaining wall. Okay. All they see is really the roof of the maintenance building. And the lower building to the left, the maintenance building is kind of hiding the retaining wall. And it's only about 5.5 feet at the absolute highest, and it's 2 or 3 feet at either end. So I didn't really see a reason why we would want to try to grade that hill out.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. I think in a lot of these cases, it's not really an aesthetic issue in most cases. It's usually if you don't have to put in a 5, 6, whatever size large retaining wall and have to have that maintenance for right. Private, why would you do that?
Right. Like there's also a practical reason because that building sits into the hill. If we were to take that wall out and leave the existing grade there, kids would almost be able to jump on the roof of this building. So there is some practical reason for trying to separate that space back there as well.
Okay. I think because the hill,
it goes up.
So
we're basically building this thing into the side of the hill.
Be able to jump from the top of the hill.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. So it's not sloping down; it's sloping up from
yes,
the back.
Correct.
Gotcha.
All right. The high school is pretty close by, so I mean,
little entertainment.
You'd be tempted.
And Doug, we're tied into that retaining wall is that Doug Johnson mentioned that if your LOD changes, you'd have to get a new exemption.
Correct.
Conservation because it only applies to this. So I can appreciate that.
Okay.
We had some comments on just, or I guess, had some comments on sort of the width of this, like, well, for lack of a better term, curb cut in the front of this thing and all the doors on the front, and it just, there's a lot of doors.
Right, the curb cut, you know, it's serving the two garage doors for the golf carts.
Which I understand.
And then there's right to the side of those, it's a person door to get into that area.
Yeah.
And then the double doors is salt storage, because we really wanted to be able to unload those trucks directly into the salt storage. And then the one all the way to the side, I think those are for carts. So
Yeah, I looked at the floor plan. It's Sandra provided a sketch on the comments about, you know, narrowing the curb cut and
Right.
You know, extending that sidewalk down so that the you know, the garage doors are still served as, you know, through a driveway, and then the other doors are served more with more green space. So you might just consider that.
All right, we'll take a look at that.
I think that was essentially it. I mean, figuring out the zoning was the biggest thing, and I think we've got that solved.
Right. Is Marie here?
Unless she's virtual, she's not in the room.
I just don't see whether she was on the list or not.
I did see a comment from her that
It doesn't look like it, Kevin.
Yeah, we do. We had some comments from her, and looks like we can make them all work except for the one at the very end, the loop in the parking lot. And I'll just have to get with her about a performance-based review for that. But,
yeah, if you need to follow up with me about that, please do. But
Yeah.
Otherwise, I think you can probably work that out with Marie.
Yeah, I don't see any reason why we can't. It's pretty simple. So, but I'll get with her and work that out. You would
Yeah,
also,
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
there was also a comment about landscape and lighting.
Oh, right. I forgot.
Yeah, we'll provide the landscape, the lighting with the existing parking lot lighting and some building mounted lighting. I don't really think we're going to need any other site lighting.
Okay. Well, if that's the case, just put that in the notes that, you know, no additional site lighting is necessary or something like that. And I'll like put it in the notes on the landscape sheet or the cover sheet or something.
Okay. And we'll add the landscape. No problem.
Yeah, I was just noting in the amendment checklist that the landscape sheets were required and they weren't provided in the set.
Yeah, we'll take care of that.
Okay.
Let me just. All right, that's all I had. So yeah, I think
Yeah, it should be pretty. This should be pretty straightforward, I would think.
Yeah, we're gonna try to get this in right back into you guys. So.
I was gonna say, Kevin, do you have everything you need to do that, to get it, to turn it around?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
Yes, we'll get this in pretty quick.
Okay, and I think the checklist had this marked as a major amendment, if I'm correct.
Because it was adding square footage.
Okay. Well, in that case, I will, if you're going to get it in pretty quickly, I will start putting together a staff report so we can move it along as soon as, you know, as quickly as possible.
Great. Appreciate that.
Yeah, well, and mostly because I have a lot of other big projects. So if I can fit you in the front end, then everyone's life will be better.
Okay.
So
Sounds good to us.
was there anything else?
No, that's all we had.
Okay. Sounds good. Thanks, Kevin.
All right,
Thanks,
thanks,
guys.
everybody.
Thank you.
Dan.